Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited that you joined us for this session today. Our speaker today is Laurie Tess. She is a K through 4th reading interventionist who works with students to develop skills and strategies to become successful readers and writers. The majority of the students she works with are English language learners whose home language is Spanish. She always brings a wealth of knowledge when she speaks to our audiences. So Laurie, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Of course. Next slide, please.
Okay, why isn't it? Oh dear. Now it worked when we were. Okay, I hope we don't have to start. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. That's okay. Technology changes everything, right?
It does.
Okay, so this disclaimer just says that an online degree from UAGC does not lead to immediate teacher licensure in any state. And if you want to become a teacher, you must go back to your individual state and make sure that you're meeting their requirements. Next slide. And this disclaimer just says that UAGC provides links to other websites and institutions, but is not responsible for anything shared in this presentation. So Laurie, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, as Tisha said, my name is Laurie Tess, and I am a reading interventionist. My role has changed a bit this year. I am working strictly with our EL students, working on those same strategies that she mentioned. So I'm a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats, as many of us do. I'm a wife. I'm the mother of 3 adult children, the grandmother of 3 very active 6 and under grandchildren who I watch quite a bit. I'm the daughter of an elderly parent who needs more and more of my help. I am a full-time EL teacher and family engagement coordinator and a part-time yoga teacher. In the past 3 years, I've lost my mom and my brother-in-law, dealt with the addiction of a loved one, lived through COVID, both in personal and professional, my personal and professional life. And I'm telling you this not because I have any more or less on my plate than anyone else. But I tell you that because we all wear a lot of hats. We all deal with stressors in our lives. And life can hand us a lot of stuff. And if we don't take care of ourselves, and if we don't have those strategies to take care of ourselves, we can burn out pretty quickly, and we risk chronic disease, which I'll talk about a little bit in this presentation. One of the things that's a recurring theme in the yoga classes I teach is that you can't pour from an empty vessel, and that's the title of my presentation. We are so many things to so many people that we often forget about ourselves. And we can't adequately care for others if we don't take care of ourselves first. So we need to let go of the idea that self-care is a selfish thing. Actually, it's one of the most selfless things we can do. It's taken me a long time to figure that out, and I still struggle sometimes, but I'm getting there. So let's just start by talking a little bit about what self-care is and what it isn't. So I think of self-care as small incremental changes to your lifestyle that eventually become a habit. It becomes a daily routine that promotes wellness, not just to your physical body, but your emotional, mental, and spiritual being. It's unique to each individual. There's no one size fits all, and it's essential. And I put that in caps because it is essential. We cannot take care of others if we don't first take care of ourselves. Self-care is not necessarily a product or a program. You'll see a lot of programs out there. You'll see a lot of products advertised. I'm not saying they're bad. I've used some of them myself, but that's not strictly what self-care is. It's also not one size fits all. We're all different. We all need different things. What works for one person may not work for another. It's not a fad. It's something that needs to be an ongoing part of our lives. It's not always easy. Taking care of ourselves is some work, and it is absolutely not selfish. And I know for many of us, it's hard to get past that idea. We do feel selfish taking time for ourselves, but we matter and we need to take care of ourselves. And I want to put out a little self-care disclaimer here. Um, it's kind of a current buzzword, and it is more important than ever, especially after these past few years of COVID. And we need to remember, though, that not everyone has access to self-care. And not having access doesn't mean that we don't have the monetary means to access self-care. We can have a lot of financial resources and still not be able to access it. And the reason for that is because depression, mental illness, and addiction are at all-time highs. There are people who are struggling literally just to get out of bed and get through the day. And when you're doing that, it can really be impossible to find the resources or even the strength that you need to begin a practice of self-care. So it's really important to recognize this in ourselves and others, and remember that there's no shame in not being okay. There's a good resource at the end of this presentation. NAMI has some great resources. Part of my yoga work is leading, it's called Y12SR, Yoga for 12-Step Recovery. And it's for those with addiction or someone in their lives with addiction, or maybe they're in recovery. And we work really hard to eliminate the stigma and the shame that's associated with mental illness, addiction, depression. And it's starting to change. You might see a lot of celebrities coming out now and talking about their own journeys with mental illness or addiction. So slowly but surely, we're getting rid of that shame and stigma, but it still exists. And because it exists, very often people don't reach out for help. So I really just want to put out there that if you are one of those people, or if you know someone who struggles, there are resources out there. And if we can help people find a community, then that helps them on their journey so that they can start to practice self-care for themselves. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm not going to get into the real sciencey part of it because honestly, that's not my strength. But one of the things that was an integral part of my yoga training was the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and its role in stress. And so kind of just a real simple explanation. The sympathetic nervous system is part of the autonomic nervous system, and its general role is to mobilize the body's flight or fight response. And so during a perceived threat, which could be stress, trauma, a tragedy, it helps the body respond to that. So the body speeds up, we tense up, we become more alert, and any functions that are not essential for survival shut down. But then once the threat is passed, our body should shift into that parasympathetic nervous system. That's the other half of the autonomic nervous system. And its function is to control homeostasis and bring our body into balance and come back to that rest and digest response. And it's so it's a counterbalance to that sympathetic nervous system, and it restores our body to a calm state. That's how it's supposed to work. So when we're in a flight or fight response, we might notice our breathing becoming more rapid or shallow, our heart rate increasing. We might get hot and flushed. And once that danger has passed, we should see our breath slow, our heart rate come back to normal, and we come back to a state of calm. That's how it's supposed to work. However, when we live in a constant state of stress, that's when things start to go a little wrong. And stress and chronic illness are very closely related. It's estimated that about 43% of adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. And they're saying 75 to 90%, probably even higher now, of all doctor visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. So typically the body's stress response system is self-limiting. So like I said, once the threat is passed, things start to return to normal. Your adrenaline and cortisol levels drop, and then your heart rate and blood pressure return to where they're supposed to be. But when there are stressors that are always present and you constantly feel under attack, what happens is that flight or fight that sympathetic stress response stays active, stays turned on. And so what happens then is, because you're always in that state, your cortisol levels will continue to rise until it comes to a point where your brain tells your body, okay, we need to stop producing cortisol. And then what happens is your cortisol levels drop tremendously, and it can disrupt all your body's processes. So I'm not a doctor. I just have done a little bit of research because it does apply to me. I was dealing with a lot of stress in the last 3 years. I alluded to it a little bit, but to the point where I just kind of live my life waiting for the next bad thing to happen. And when you're in that state of constant anxiety, constant worry, constant stress, something has to give. And I went to a number of doctors who, for my fatigue, my inflammation, my depression, so many things that just, I knew it wasn't right. And they didn't really give me answers. I ended up going to an integrative doctor. I'm not saying that that's something you need to do, but they did do some tests, and my cortisol levels were extremely low. And so I had adrenal insufficiency. And so I'm working to correct that. And that's why self-care is so important, because you can, with accumulated stress, have a lot of chronic illnesses. And so it's really important to make it part of your life. And so I'm going to talk over the next few slides of several self-care options, and remembering that they might not be what you want to do. Maybe they're not your cup of tea, but work to find something that does work for you. So one of the things I always tell people is start by finding what brings you joy, and know that you don't have to do it all. There are literally hundreds of self-care practices out there, and you don't have to do them all, nor should you, because if you try to do too many, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to give up. Certainly give something a try. Give as many things a try as you want, but know that you don't have to stick with that particular practice if it's not bringing you joy. It's about finding out what you need, and also making sure it's something that you enjoy implementing, because if you can't make it a habit, it's not going to do any good. So making self-care a habit is just like any other habit that you want to develop. I suggest choosing just 1 or 2 practices to start, and do them every day for maybe a week or 2, until they just become part of your day. Then pick 1 or 2 more and implement those changes for a couple of weeks. If you start by making small incremental changes over time, you're going to be more likely to stick with those habits. Think about how long it takes to break a bad habit. Well, the same applies to developing good habits too. You have to do it in small steps and just really make it part of your daily routine before you move on to the next thing. And don't beat yourself up for missing a day or 2 or 3. Just give yourself the grace to be human and start again. I remember when I first started investigating some self-care practices, I literally tried to do about 10. Oh, this looks good. This looks good. Oh yeah, I like this. And pretty soon, within 2 weeks, I had given up because it was just too much. So just picking 1 or 2, implement those for a few weeks, check in with yourself, and then if you're ready, add a few more. So many of the self-care habits that I'm going to share with you in this presentation do come from Ayurveda. And that's a science. It's often called the sister science of yoga. It's viewed as the first system of medicine ever established. It's about 5,000 years old. And it's an Indian system of medicine that addresses your body holistically. So it addresses the mind, the body, and the spirit. And it emphasizes eating right to bring yourself back into that balance. It focuses on exercise, breathing fully, reducing stress, sleeping well, all those things that make sense. You don't have to be, know a lot about Ayurveda to implement a lot of these practices, because they're things that a lot of people do anyway. But if you'd like to learn more about the science of Ayurveda, I've put 2 really good books on the resource page. One is Ayurveda's Beginner's Guide by Susan Weiss-Bolin, and then Body Thrive by Kate Stillman, both really good books. So over the next couple of slides, I wanted to talk a little bit about what self-care can look like throughout your day. There's certain practices that make sense in the morning, others that make sense in the evening, and then others that you can do throughout the day. And I've just picked a few here. So first thing, before you get out of bed, before you even put your feet on the floor, just do a full body stretch. You can lay in your bed and do some stretches, bring your knees to your chest, or you could sit on the edge of your bed with your feet on the floor and just let your upper body hang down, or flow your arms, just anything to kind of get things moving before you get out of bed. One of the things, and when I first heard about this, I thought it was really weird, but I do it every morning. Before I brush my teeth, have my coffee, drink any water, I use a tongue scraper. It sounds weird, but when you sleep, a lot of bacteria develops, especially in your mouth, overnight. And so if you scrape your tongue before you ingest anything, you're getting all of that bacteria off that's grown overnight. It actually improves your sense of taste. You can use a metal or a plastic scraper. I've included links to Amazon. You can check those out. You can even use the edge of a spoon and just go as far back in your tongue as you can without gagging yourself, and just scrape, and then rinse your mouth out. So once I've done that, one of the things that I've started doing is drinking some hot water with lemon. And the reason you want to do that is it rehydrates your body. When you sleep, you lose a lot of water from your body. And so you need to rehydrate. It flushes out the toxins. It also removes some of that uric acid from your joints and gets your digestive system moving, which you want to do first thing in the morning. The reason they say hot or warm water is it hydrates your tissues better than cold. And lemon, if you like lemon, you don't have to, but it does help to balance the high acidic pH levels we wake up with. And then one thing that I would really recommend, if it's something that appeals to you or speaks to you, is just taking some quiet time to read or meditate or journal. I literally just take 5 to 10 minutes. I sit in solitude. I have a book that I read, a passage from a day. I just kind of set my intention for the day, or maybe think of things I'm grateful for. My husband gets up and he immediately turns on the news. I mean, literally the minute he gets out of bed. And there's, as we know, so many things on the news that are so tragic, so depressing, that I just don't know why he would want to start his day that way. I choose not to. So just taking those few minutes to set your mood for the day can make a really huge difference. There are other morning practices you could do. You could do a yoga practice, you could do a longer meditation, but these are the ones that I feel work for me. Again, those books at the end of the presentation have a lot of information. So at night, I tend to do a little more at night because I do struggle with sleep, and many of us probably do. And I feel like the older I get, the worse it gets. Some things that I've learned that have really helped is to eat light and early. So I try to finish my evening meal by 6 p.m. and I try to make it the lighter meal of the day, which is kind of counterintuitive. We're used to a big supper, right? But if you stick with something like soups or salads or something just kind of light, and if you finish eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed, it gives your body more time to digest the meal. If you eat later, you eat really heavy, it means that instead of your body getting the deep restorative rest it needs, it's busy doing that digestion of of food that you ate later. And so you're not getting that deep restorative sleep. We've all heard about this, electronics off. This is a hard one for me, trying to stop scrolling through the phone or being on my computer at least an hour before bed. There's a lot of research that shows that blue light associated with those things disrupt our melatonin production, and interrupt our circadian rhythm. And that was another thing that was really low in my blood work. So I'm working hard on that. Golden milk, you may have heard of it. Turmeric and ginger are really known for their anti-inflammatory properties. And when you combine this with warm milk and a little nutmeg for its calming effect, this can be a really nice drink to have before bed. There's a lot of recipes out there. You can even order pre-made mixes. So if you just Google golden milk and experiment with different recipes, I will say turmeric is kind of an acquired taste. I'm not a huge fan. But you could have a cup of chamomile tea. They even make tea with turmeric. So try out some different things. I really like to use a diffuser at night. They can be purchased anywhere, and you don't have to get a very expensive one at all. I would, though, suggest spending a little more on the essential oils because you want to make sure you have good quality. Some of my favorites to use for sleep that you can diffuse in your diffuser are lavender, sandalwood, bergamot, and clary sage. They all are said to have sleep-inducing properties. Something else that I started doing is a foot massage, believe it or not. And so if you pick up, and again, you can get these on Amazon, or there's a number of places you can get a nice self-massage oil. And so what I do is just take a little bit in my hand and rub my hands around until the oil is nice and warm, and then just spend about like 3 minutes massaging my feet. And they say that massaging your feet especially works on calming your body. It helps your nervous system and helps you just sink into a deeper sleep. So you could give that a try. Put on socks before crawling into bed if you don't want that oil on your sheets. There are some really great sleep apps out there. If you're someone who has a hard time falling asleep without something going on in the background, a sleep app is nice. They have guided sleep meditations, yoga nidra, white noise, celebrities that tell bedtime stories. Two of my favorites are Insight Timer. That's a free one, lots of great meditations. And then Calm. And that one is a subscription, but that's the one that has bedtime stories. And I swear by it. I'm out before they're halfway done. And then yoga is a nice way to settle in as well. So you could spend 15, 20 minutes just doing a gentle yoga practice. Again, there are so many yoga home practices on YouTube you could check out. You might want to consider a yoga nidra practice, which is a guided meditation that puts you kind of in a ready to sleep state. So any or all of those are great for inducing sleep. And like I said, the older I get, the harder it is for me to get a decent night's sleep. And these aren't foolproof ways, but I found they've really helped. And throughout the day, make sure you're moving. You know, even at work, just find a way to move a couple times a day. Take a walk or stretch or do a 10-minute chair yoga routine, which I've included one in this presentation. You can do that on your lunch or break. And make sure you're eating right. So earlier I said in the evening, eat your lightest meal. You want to make your midday meal your largest meal because you want to fuel that energy to get you through the rest of the day. So fruits and vegetables and healthy proteins and fats, try to eat no later than 2. And so instead of grabbing that soda or that candy bar in the afternoon to keep you going, if you eat your heaviest meal, including those healthy components, it'll get you through the day. And then just taking time throughout the day to practice some calming breathing. And I'll describe some of those in a couple of slides here. So there's other Ayurvedic practices out there that you can research. They're not everyone's cup of tea, but there's things like oil pulling, using a neti pot, doing a more extensive self-massage, using a dry brush, which is basically just like a brush that you use in the shower, and just rubbing it over your skin to get the circulation going. There's herbal supplements, Reiki. I don't do a lot of these. I do use the neti pot because I do tend to get sinus infections. But again, check some out, see what works. If it's not your thing, don't do it. There's so many things out there to choose from. So obviously, as a part-time yoga teacher, yoga is something that's really important to me. I started in my teens doing yoga. I don't even know why. It was the 70s, and it seemed like a lot of people were doing yoga. It was really becoming popular. I did it mostly as an exercise thing. And I kind of got away from it, came back to it, in and out of my yoga practice. But in my 40s, I really started to make it a real part of my life. And I got my 200-hour yoga certification, and I teach a couple times a month along with my addiction class. And it has become, for me, probably the best, most effective way for me to manage my stress, because yoga is not just the postures. It can be. I mean, there's some people who do it just for that. But for me, it's about the breath. It's about the philosophy. It's my way of being in the present moment and centering myself. So you can Google yoga and you will literally find more information than you can even begin to go through. It's thousands of years old, and it's only recently, comparatively, found its way to the West. And there's as many different types of yoga as there are reasons that people practice it. So it can be very individualized. There's hatha yoga, vinyasa, hot yoga, restorative, nidra. So, do some research. It has incredible benefits, not only for our physical bodies, but our spiritual, mental, and emotional bodies as well. It is a great way, especially as you're getting older, to maintain strength. It's great for flexibility and balance. Again, another thing that as you get older, you start to lose. So I'm finding it really beneficial for me. And it just really brings, for me anyway, calm and balance and clarity to a life that's way too often filled with stress. And for me, it's a path to continued wellness as I age. Now, again, yoga is not for everyone, but I do encourage you to investigate some different options and see if there's something that would work for you. If you're choosing a yoga class, now, first of all, there's a lot of ways to practice. You can find a studio, you can do it on your own at home by following the video. But my suggestion would be, if you're new, to find a skilled and trained yoga instructor. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a yoga studio or two in your town, as I do, you can check out their website, see what they offer. Some will even offer you that first class free, so just ask. When you take a yoga class, you want to look for teachers who offer modifications of poses. Too often, I've been in a yoga class where they show a pose that there is no way I'm getting into, but a good yoga teacher will tell you an option you can take instead that will give you the same benefit and keep you safe. You also want a teacher who offers not just visual clues, but verbal cues, and who can make adjustments based on the needs of the students. So if they have a wide variety of abilities come into their class one night, they should be able to adjust to accommodate everyone. Some teachers offer hands-on adjustments to assist you, so you have to decide if you're comfortable with that. Different teachers have different styles, so really shop around and find one where you feel comfortable and safe and supported, and that really meets your needs. So if you're looking just for the strength, maybe a hot yoga class. If you're looking more for the spiritual side, maybe a hatha yoga class or vinyasa class. So look around, there's so much out there. I won't show this now because it's 10 minutes, but there is a link here to a 10-minute chair flow. So if you sit for most of the workday, or even if you don't, this is just a quick routine, gives you some quick movement, doesn't require any props. Chair yoga is very popular. It's offered in studios, often for people who have limitations in their movement, but it's not meant just for those people. This is a great yoga routine that you can do just to get some movement in your day. So if you click on the link down here below where it says 10-minute chair flow, there's a short flow that I put together. So it's me teaching it. So feel free to check that out. Breath, super important. So a lot of our stress and anxiety can be either relieved or exacerbated by how we breathe. So when we're stressed, we tend to hold our breath, or we breathe very shallowly, and that gets that sympathetic nervous system going. So we really want to practice some diaphragmatic breathing, some full breaths, so that we can access our parasympathetic nervous system. There's a lot of those out there too. But I've just included 3 here, and I'll share those with you quickly. There's a 3-part breath. So usually when we breathe in, we feel our chest rise first. With 3-part breath, we want to feel our belly kind of fill like a balloon. We should feel that rise first. And then our rib cage starts to expand, and then our collarbones lift. As you exhale, you reverse all of that. Nice way to practice this is on your back, and put one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Another one that's really calming is alternate nostril breathing. So you'll exhale completely. You're going to close your right nostril with your thumb, and you're going to inhale through your left nostril, and then you're going to close your left nostril with your other fingers. It doesn't matter which one. Then you're opening that right nostril and exhaling. Then you inhale and close the right nostril. Release those fingers so that you can exhale out the left side. That's one cycle. It takes a little bit to get used to, but it is very calming. And if you do like up to about 5 cycles, if you're stressed, feeling a lot of anxiety, it really makes a difference. And then another one I use this one a lot to help me sleep if my mind won't shut off, and that's equal ratio breathing. And so as you inhale, you're counting. So you're going to work toward a count of maybe 4 to 6, maybe it's less. We all breathe differently. So you're going to inhale and count. And then you pause at the top for a count of 2. And then as you exhale, you make that exhale match the count of your inhale. So if you inhale for 4, hold, and then you exhale for 4, and then hold, and then can repeat that a few times. I find that really helps me relax and helps me sleep. So those you can do anytime that you need it. And once again, this page is not turning. Oh boy. All right, give me a minute here. I don't know why it's not moving forward. There we go. All right, so meditation. A lot of people have this preconceived image of, like the picture, sitting cross-legged on a meditation cushion for 30 minutes. I cannot do that. Meditation, I believe 100% in the benefits. It is hard for me. So you can sit for as little as 5 minutes and get the benefit. Just find a place where you can sit. It can be on the floor cross-legged. That's hard on my knees. You can sit in a chair. Make sure you have a nice straight back. You can even lie down. But sitting in that stillness and mindfulness can kind of help us be present and turn our attention inward. And that helps bring us balance and calm. And a lot of people think you can't have any thoughts going on when you're meditating. They're going to come. Just acknowledge them and kind of let them go. And if nothing else, come back to the breath as your guide. There are as many types of meditation as, I'm going to go back one, as there are yoga. I'll just go over these real briefly. You can do more research on your own. Sankalpa, where you repeat a vow or an intention, and we say them in the present tense as if you've already accomplished it. So for example, I am enough. I am free from worry and anxiety, and just repeating that until you feel yourself calm. You can light a candle, and candle gazing is where your eyes are open and you're staring at that flame and you just focus on that. Helps you shut out other distractions. I really like guided meditation because it's hard for me to sit still. So I use that insight timer, and you can find so many meditations there. You can filter it by time. You can look for 5-minute meditations, 2-minute meditations. I really like that a lot. Visualization, you can just bring to mind a person or a place where you feel calm and something that brings you joy, and just kind of recall all those emotions associated with that picture in your head. Body scan is another one. I like this also to help me sleep. You tighten and release different parts of the body, working from your feet to your head. If you like visualization, you can kind of just imagine a wave of light or water moving through your body, and then imagine it just washing away that tension. A walking meditation, I don't think people really think of walking and meditation together, but as you walk, focus on each foot as you bring it to the earth, and tune into your 5 senses as you're walking. What do you hear, see, smell, touch, and maybe even taste? So again, lots of choices. Play with what works for you because meditation can be tricky. When you are searching for self-care, you can be searching forever. So you need to know what it is you're looking for. I say that knowing what you need is your superpower. And so when you're searching, let's say that you are looking for meditation, some keywords might be meditation playlist, meditation for specific needs. For example, meditation for morning gratitude, or you can search meditation apps. Yoga, you can search by type, benefits of yoga, online practices, yoga for stress. You can even search for yoga for specific parts of the body, yoga for the low back, yoga for neck and shoulders. Better sleep. Search for routines, tips for better sleep, natural supplements for better sleep, essential oils. Work-life balance, that's a tricky one, right? Some keywords you might put in are how to achieve or tips for. Healthy eating, there's so many things out there now. Just be as specific as you can, maybe gluten-free, dairy-free, Ayurvedic. If you are interested in getting more information about Ayurveda, maybe just type in Ayurveda routines, Ayurveda lifestyle, practices, recipes, and then breath work. You can look for breath work to relieve stress, to relieve anxiety. Apps, they have apps for breath work. So don't overwhelm yourself by searching too broadly. Try to narrow it down as much as you can. And then finally, I have some resources here for self-care. There's some books that are all available on Amazon. I have all of these and they're all wonderful. The apps that I mentioned, Calm and Insight Timer. And again, yoga, you could search and find hundreds and hundreds of home routines. One that I really like is Yoga with Adrienne. She's on YouTube. She has hundreds of practices. They're various lengths and ability levels. So if you're a beginner, she is a really good one to check out. I really like her a lot. She usually has her dog with her. And she's just kind of a down to earth, real person. Again, I have included that mental health link, NAMI.org. It stands for the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and it has a ton of resources, whether it's depression, mental illness, or whatever it is, they can help you. So kind of in closing, I just want to remind you that some key takeaways. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is essential. It is essential because if we can't keep our vessel filled, we can't pour from that vessel. We can't take care of the people who need us. I couldn't take care of my aging father, my adult children who need some help right now. I couldn't do my job. And remember, take it slow. Search for those things that you are going to make a habit. Start out small with just a couple of things and implement those first, and do the things that bring you the most joy. And I hope you make self-care part of your daily routine. So thank you so much.
Laurie, that was amazing. I think that many of us over the last several years have had some sort of traumatic event happen, either to us or to somebody we know. And sometimes it's hard to reach out for help. And I love every single one of these resources. It's going to be amazing for everyone who watches this. I was writing some down, taking screenshots. So this was amazing. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story also.
Yes.
And
you know, I just want to add, you know, when we think of traumatic events, people think of these big things, you know, like abuse or, you know, those kinds of things. Everyone needs to remember that we all have traumas. COVID was a trauma. Losing a loved one is a trauma. There are things that are different for all of us, and we need to not be ashamed of that. That's the biggest thing I want to say. So
you're 100% right. And in the news, it's every single day. There's things happening to people and people just can't handle it. So we've got to reach out and we've got to get help. So Laurie, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you so much. And I know you'll be back.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, Laurie. You too.
All right. Bye.